Everyone, I'm gonna call this work session to order. Um, First on the agenda, we have bylaws update and ratification. And I think we have our counsel, Sean Arnold on Zoom, as well as Ms. Stewart is available if there's any questions on the bylaw update ratification.
Afternoon, everybody.
Do we have any board members with any concerns or questions about the bylaws and the ratification?
Let me see what version we're looking at here.
We didn't get a redacted version of changes, so can you go over what changes were made?
Sean, are you available to kind of talk a little bit about some of those changes that are?
Or are those just the changes, or is that the changes we just voted, we put in from last meeting?
Correct.
Correct. Good afternoon, everybody. So what was removed was the issues related to the
Hey, Sean,
position
you're
of
muted.
chief
Just a
academic
minute, please.
officer. I show I'm not muted on this side.
We need audio on Zoom.
Okay.
Okay, Sean, can you test it for us?
Yeah, can you hear me now?
Yes, sir.
Okay, great. Good afternoon, everybody. What was presented to you was a redaction of the chief academic officer language. That was in, I believe, the last version that came before the board, and that was removed after our discussion at the last time. But other than that, everything else that is in here was what the board had voted upon at the last meeting.
All right, thank you, Sean.
Sure.
Any more questions, board members, about ratification? Okay, we should be able to push that forward in our regular session. Moving forward, nominating committee policy by Mr. Danny Gill, Chairman.
Actually, Sean produced this document for me. I was talking to him about the upcoming nomination for seat 7. So he went through the bylaws and prepared a policy for the nominating committee for future reference. We don't need a nominating committee on this selection, but presented for your review and approval is the policy for nominating committee for the Board of Trustees. Any questions, you can direct those to me or Sean. Any questions? All right, Al, Ricky, back to you.
Thank you, sir. We're gonna move around on the agenda just a little bit. I see Dr. Johnson is not present to kind of go over the superintendent search committee. So we're gonna move to 6, which is actually the Lake Wales Charter School calendar 2025-26 as presented.
Item 4, Al, Ricky.
Oh, did I miss it? Oh, I'm sorry. My agenda was split. Item 4 is separating the trustees' work session and board meeting. I know that I had Mr. Marvitt actually inquiring about this for a while.
Yes, thank you, Ricky. So I know we had talked about this previously, but it was just kind of getting some information out there. As I mentioned before, I've had several People talked to me and asked that we consider that. As we looked at it, it just we seem to push our workshops into our board meetings every month. Now, granted, we don't vote on 90% of the stuff that's in the workshop until the following month, but it leads a lot to interpretation, a lot of calls and everything like that. It gives a longer opportunity for people to make their own interpretations of what's going on. It gives us a chance for us to get some input very quickly, but prior to the next board meeting that we can vote on that. So I just wanted to see if, I don't have any specific days. We had talked, I mentioned that we do something similar like the city, where the city meets the second and fourth weeks of the month. We could meet on Mondays. We could meet back-to-back days. That doesn't give us a whole lot of time, so back-to-back days is probably not a good idea. But anyway, I just wanted to see if anybody else has any thoughts on that. So if we do have enough people that want to consider that we could put it on the agenda for next month's meeting to maybe discuss and vote and have something on that. Or is it just me that is worried about that?
When you brought this up last time, I thought it was prudent to consider it, and I was in support of that. We had a brief conversation, and I would still support having further discussion because you're right. It does give us additional time to think through things, to do research if we needed to do it on our own, to get the opinions of staff, employees.
For it for two reasons, basically. The first is, especially my position on the board, in the work session, every time there's a board meeting, there's teachers that ask me questions and feedback. And I don't have the opportunity to get any of that feedback before. I know I'm not voting, but like even when we get to the voting, none of the feedback has got filtered through me. So I think it's good to have that feedback break. But I also think there's something to be said for meetings that run real long, more effective than a 3-hour meeting. By the end of the meeting, we're flying through things just to be done with it. So I think for a couple of reasons, I think the 2-day is better.
Just a question, and I mean, I won't lie, my schedule it's almost hard for me to just come one day. I'm gonna be honest. And you mentioned voting on, what I thought about was maybe if we have a work session, and I hope I say this the right way where everybody can understand. We have a work session on the same day of the meeting, but the work session is for, I guess, we can discuss, the following. And, where we actually have 30 days to think about, that work session. And in the meeting that we have on that same day, we can vote on the prior work session.
And I know we do that now, but like, for instance, we're going to discuss the applications today, and then we're going to vote today. So, there are some things that we go right straight from the workshop to the thing, and it has been, maybe it's due to the circumstances, but here recently we've had some of that, and not all, but some of that. So that's why, I think it would be good to have it. Plus, as Mike alluded to, we, sometimes having a big, long meeting is a little difficult when you can break it up into a couple.
Well, that's what I'm saying. If we make a commitment, I guess, to make the agenda for whatever we're going to vote on at the next meeting, we'll just keep that on the agenda and not just put something on the agenda where we're going to vote at the next meeting that we're having on the same day.
I know we're running, like today, we're going to run we started earlier because we have a ceremony and we may run into time, and in trying to keep things brief, we may push up against that, and then it just kills, either starts the meeting late or it kills the conversation in the workshop. And the workshops are almost, well, almost probably more important than the meeting, because the meeting we're just voting on what we talked about in the workshop. I just feel like we need more time to talk about it and more time to have input on it.
So my thoughts are, now, correct me if I'm wrong, but these agendas come out a week before, right? To the public. Yes, it's public information. So we have a week before the meeting, right? Am I wrong on that? So if you have a week, whether you have a week or whether you have a month, you're gonna look, if you really care, you're gonna look at it. That's just my thoughts. But I'm all for the working on stuff this month and then voting on it next month. I'm good with that. But the 2 days thing, no.
Well, you get an agenda and people can talk to you about it, but when they hear what you say or what I say or what another trustee says, then you get the questions. And then we have 30 days, as Tanya brought up, to discuss it, but it gets stale after that period of time. So I guess that's my concern is that, you know, I hear what you're saying, Andy, and I think that's a good thought, that you get some input on it prior to going, but once we get talking about it, it gets a little more difficult.
When I met with the teachers, they brought up a good point, because with Sunshine Law, we talk about something today, we can't talk to each other until the next meeting. And so that was something they said, if we met like the first and third Monday or whatever, then that gives us time to talk to our assigned schools, and then we have 2 weeks versus a full month. Because teachers have felt like a lot of the things we've brought up never got followed through on, because a month would pass by before the trustees are together again and can talk about it. And that, I mean, I see their point, it's valid.
So is the question what would it look like? 2 meetings or just 1 meeting 30 days later? So are we willing to continue the discussion about this, just kind of planning out what it looks like?
Well, I guess, I don't know, Mr. Chairman, do we need to, look to see if we put this on the agenda for next month and vote yay or nay? And if we do, what would be the dates for our next board meeting? Or do we want to try to talk about anything else more today on what the dates would be and then put it into the meeting?
I mean, certainly this time period here is allocated to talk out your viewpoints and kind of hash those out and you know, come up with a happy medium. I mean, I'm like Tanya, my schedule's crazy, so it'd be hard for me to commit to another day regularly, but I'm going off the board, so it really doesn't pertain to me heavily. So I hope you all talk it through and figure out what works best for the board and also the system as a whole. So whether you want to continue the discussion now or you want to bring forth some proposed dates and ideas and take it to a vote, we can certainly do that.
Another point that teachers made is, like today we started before 4, but even with us starting at 4 o'clock, that automatically prevents Box South faculty from coming because they're not done with duty hours yet. So if we split up like first and third Monday or whatever we do, and we could start at 5, and then more teachers would be able to participate in our meetings as well. So that was another point that they brought up.
All right, so it seems like we have a couple for and a couple against.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm not saying absolutely no. I'm just saying my schedule is, I can't commit to saying that there's another day in the week that.
So let's, to expedite this a little bit, what are the options? Throw out the options. What are our 2 or 3 top options for what we're proposing? We're proposing first and third.
I think that would probably be best if we meet every 2 weeks, 2 weeks apart. I don't think same week or back-to-back days really accomplishes anything.
Well, I know in the
So,
past, we
and-
used to meet on Thursday work session, and then we'd meet on Monday for the regular meeting.
Okay.
And like Trustee Blair said, for those of us have had the packet for a week, we've already reviewed, gone to the people and asked questions that we had questions on. So by the time we came to the meeting, we had as much information as we could possibly have in those amount of days. That's why we ended up switching it to same day, because there was really no benefit Thursday, Monday.
I got you.
And we were having conflicts with people making the meetings because having the type of Thursday and a Monday.
Well, I know that, again, my concern has been is once comments are made here on Thursday, in the old days, you had such a short period of time, but at least you had some time. Today, we don't have, we have 30 days to do that, but as Lori pointed out, kind of gets stale, doesn't get followed up on. You have a lot of questions you can't get answers to until 30 days later. That may lead to more questions, so I'm not sure on dates, but so I guess we could put out a few dates. And
So what I hear so far is first and third, 30 days. Is there another option?
The option you said, I think the Thursday, Monday, I think is also a viable option. My fear is that if it's every 2 weeks, it becomes 2 work sessions. It's long enough apart that the second meeting should just be, you've had time to assess things, come back and vote. The second meeting should be relatively quick, in my mind, anyway.
Okay.
yeah, I agree. A second meeting, hopefully, you'll be able to get the answers you need to the people and the comments you would like to have. So you may have a little more discussion on Monday, but it won't be just a yes vote.
Okay, so the 3 options we'll look at, and we will, over the next month, I expect, we'll talk about it. You think about your schedules, how that affects your business, how that affects the things that you're doing, and we will decide on one of those 3, or we stay as is. So as a board, we'll come up to that, so we have 4 options.
Okay.
First and third, 30 days, Thursday, Monday, or stay as
30
is.
days, we're already at 30 days now.
Okay.
So just 3 options.
Okay. So first and third and Thursday, Monday, or stay the same as we are?
Well, are we meeting the last Monday or the third Monday now? Just for financial reporting, is that, the later, usually we meet the last Monday typically. We're pretty close to it.
Yeah, we meet the third Monday.
Third Monday.
Okay, and so that still works for you?
That still works. Yeah, so the work session wouldn't necessarily. I'm sorry, the work session wouldn't necessarily bring financials forward unless there's major financial challenges, because I wouldn't have time to close. So if you got a meeting earlier in the month, I wouldn't have enough time to close the month. So, the Thursday before, obviously the financials are out. If you have the Thursday before that following Monday is coming up, then that's plenty of time, if that's one of your work sessions.
Okay, good point. So sounds more realistic to be a Thursday, Monday
Because of the financials.
because of the financials, yeah. Or we wouldn't be reviewing that and have questions, so.
Any comments on that? Okay. Everybody good?
Yep.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Marvin. Moving on, I apologize, we're gonna skip over item 5 and move to our Lake Wales Charter School calendar 2025-26. That calendar is available The schools have had an opportunity to give their opinions on it and make their suggestions, and what you have before you is what I'll be requesting to be approved. If there's some specific questions, I have Ms. Hayward in the audience, as well as LaQuanda Barrows, who can get specifics, or the principals are available as well.
Principals, you've seen this, are good with this?
I have a general question. And this isn't so much about this calendar, but I happen to know that Polk County just recently approved 26-27 calendar. Is there a reason that we're so far behind? I mean, but just curious, what does it take to do this? That we get the calendar in 4 months and they get the calendar 18 months ahead, kind of thing.
Well, what we do is we allow our principals to have input in terms of what works on the schedules. And of course, it's 7 to 10 people in there giving their thoughts on it. We also, I believe, did a survey with the instructional team in order to gather some information about some things on professional days and things of that nature. So we gathered some information. So our calendars, we just put a little more time in. We start with Polk County's calendar, but we don't just follow with it. We give a lot of consideration to our principals for that.
Now, I was going to ask the question, so this doesn't mirror Polk County School Board? It's not exact?
Not completely exact, but it's very close.
Okay.
Yes, sir. Any more comments on the calendar? Okay. Okay, we're gonna, Ms. Johnson joined us. Thank you for joining us, Ms. Johnson. Well. Oh, I'm sorry. We care for you as well. Do you need a moment? We can actually move down to the Bach North principal status, or we can just, would you like to do that? Okay, so unfortunately, we had to make leadership change with the Bach North situation. And what I like to do today is to ask the board, I'll be asking the board for consideration for Ms. Toya Speed to actually be the interim principal of Bach North until we complete the process of advertising the position. We did advertise the position, but we haven't had a chance to finish out that process. So I'll be asking the board to confirm that she'll be the interim until we actually complete that process with proper compensation. And hopefully we'll have that process completed so we can move forward in May with an appointment.
What is the timeline on hiring the new principal, not the interim, but the new principal? To start next school year? Is that what you're looking for?
Yes, but we'll have it sorted out by next board meeting, May. Yes, sir. I'm gonna go back, moving back in the agenda. We're gonna look at the superintendent search committee. Dr. Johnson, if you're ready.
Yes, so, again, excuse my tardiness. The selection committee, the selection committee reviewed the applicants, and we had 2 really good meetings. We narrowed it down to the top. It ended up actually being the top 11, because even though we had said that we would narrow down to the top 10, the 10th and the 11th position were so close in points. I mean, it was like a point difference that we thought it would be not fair if we did not include that 11th person. So we submitted the top 11 to the board for review to approve the top 11. Is there anything?
Did we all receive that? Because I don't think were we supposed to have received those? Because I don't believe that I did. Maybe I missed an email, but
Yes, you were supposed to pick them up.
I was supposed to pick something
At
up.
the
You got
charter
them, you
office.
received an email,
Okay,
yes,
all right, then it is my fault.
yes.
I will get it immediately.
Yeah, you would have had 2 weeks to, no, it's been a while. It's been a
Been
few weeks.
about 8 months.
Hasn't been 8 months, but it's been a few weeks.
Okay.
Yeah. And so,
Okay, so what's next?
so the board has to, should have had an opportunity to review the top 11 and present any questions that you may have and approve the top 11 for the next phase of the process.
And what we received is anonymous, so all we have is
Yes.
background, no names or any of that information. so.
The content that the board received is pretty much exactly what we received as a selection committee. It was a blind process, so there was no names, no identifying information, and so they basically received everything that we received and had the opportunity to go through it and review them.
So just a clarification, so our task today is not, is just to agree on the 11?
Yes,
Not
just to.
not to weed any of those 11?
No, not
Okay.
to weed any of those out. We started with 20 and we dwindled them down to 10, to the top 11. The goal of the board is to approve the top 11 for the next phase of the process. There's no additional weeding
Okay,
out.
so let me make, the way I understand this, we had the top 11, then we had a section that had those that met qualifications but that weren't scored as high as the other 11. And then we had a section of didn't meet the qualifications.
Yes.
Okay.
So the ones that, so we started with 20. The ones that did not meet the qualifications, being number of years, being education, was taken out of the 20. And then those that did not score in the top 11 or close to that, like I said, that 10 and 11 was so close, we left the 11th one in. So that is what the board received, the top 11.
So I guess, and I know we got the scoring rubric last week of how these were scored,
So
right?
basically what happened is there was a rubric that every person on the committee received. They all scored. We came together in a meeting. We reviewed all the scoring. We had a conversation in regards to all of the scoring. The scoring was averaged. And what you have is the average score of all candidates.
Okay. So, again, help me if we had 14 people that met the qualifications.
Yes.
Okay, got it, all right.
14 that met the qualifications. However, we agreed upon that to weed them down would be to weed them to the top 10. There is 11 because of that really small of a percentage point difference.
Okay, so Dr. Johnson, just so I understand, so I'm assuming we received this packet at the meeting, at the regular meeting, we're going to be voting on accepting that packet
Yes.
and whether we're going with the recommendations of the committee or if we want to alter that or whatever we want to do there to move forward, and then we'll receive the names and all the other
Yes.
information? Okay. So today's meeting is accepting this packet and voting on where we're going from there with the
The top
contents of this
11.
packet. Okay. And then you want to explain the steps after that, what we're going to go after we vote today, what's going to be the next timeline, things we're doing, those kind of things?
Well, the next step would be the interview process. It will be determined, we initially said that the interview process will go to the board next. So the board would then interview those top candidates. And then then you will weed out from that point on. That is the next step.
Can I offer some information?
Yeah, definitely.
The last time we went through this, and I thought it was a very helpful tool, and it shortened the timeline
Okay.
and the expense of getting people here for interview, especially when you're talking 10, 11, 12, whatever many candidates, is the candidates prepared a 5 to 10 minute introduction video. And in that video, they talked about their credentials, their strengths, their accomplishments, and how they could better serve or how they would be a great fit for our system. And that was what the board reviewed, or the committee reviewed that video to then take that information and narrow it down to the top 5, rather than scheduling.
No, that sounds reasonable to me. If you wanted to take that step, that sounds reasonable.
I'm just looking at I don't know where they're all from, so I don't know the time getting them here, if they're out of state, or if they're out of town, the expense in that, and the time interviewing all of them.
So what you're recommending is that the next phase with the top 11, once approved by the board, the top 11 would do a video basic interview themselves, right? Not with anyone else, just prepared
Correct.
questions and answers that they would have to answer.
Right.
And then you all would review, we would review them, and then dwindle that number down, is what you're saying, to the top 5?
That's what I'm thinking.
And then call them in for interviews?
Yeah.
I'm okay with that.
Question,
Okay.
who interviewed, the board or the committee? So.
board.
Nobody's going to interview, so
Well,
basically.
I mean, look at the videos.
The
So
board.
will
The board.
So the board's.
It's
gonna-
in the board's hands
Okay,
today.
that's all, okay.
Yeah.
So I would just like to suggest that, at least for the next phase, is that we have all 14 that make the minimum qualifications. I don't know, based on looking at paper, that's great. I get all that. I'd like to see these people and hear. So if we're doing 11, I would like to ask that we do 14 videos.
Well, I would just say the only reason why there is 11 is because there was like a 1-point difference. The rest of them, if you look at the scoring, they are considerably in numbers of points lower.
I understand. I get it.
Okay.
But today we're voting on whether we're gonna interview or we're gonna watch videos, or interviews.
Today we're
Self-made
voting
interviews,
on the accepting of the packet from the committee
Okay,
and how many candidates we're going to move forward to the next step.
okay, and that was my question.
And then, Chair, I was going to ask you, I've kind of been brainstorming this over the last few days. My thought is whatever we vote on today, that those candidates get notified somehow, email, letter, whatever. And they're told the criteria of the video, what's expected at, the time period, the length of it. My thought is you give them a week to prepare that. And then the board would have a week to look at it, go through all of those, and then we could call a special meeting. I was thinking the week of May 5th, and I'm just throwing this out here, so this is not set. I was thinking May 5th, we call a special meeting to vote on the board on who we're going to move forward to the top 5.
I mean, the timeline seems reasonable to me.
Is that okay?
The week of the 5th of May, as long as it's not the 7th or the 8th, I will be out of state.
Okay. Or it could even be the following week. I'm just, so we give them a week and then we have at least a week to review it. And then we vote, move it to the top 5 candidates. And then at that point, I would say we schedule in-person one-on-one interviews. That's how we did it the previous time. We set up stations with the board members so they weren't together in a meeting, and the candidates rotated to the board members and had one-on-one interviews. And then from that, we had our final meeting to vote on whoever we thought the top candidate was.
That sounds good to me.
Okay. Just some thoughts.
No, I mean, it's reasonable at this point, it's fine.
I have a couple thoughts on this, or questions in general. One thing, I don't think I got the email about the packet. I just want to make sure I get stuff. But that aside, this I can get tomorrow, but I definitely want to see the videos. But also, in terms of the time, just thinking about this timeline, it seems like it is going to go past the school year. Is that right? Do we think?
With the way the timeline I put together, and Dr. Johnson's in charge of this, I'm just suggesting, the timeline I put together, the final vote on the candidate would be the May meeting.
Oh, okay.
And I do want to just caution us on time too, even though we want to have this person selected right as soon as possible. But we do always want to keep in mind, when you do a quick hire, sometimes things don't always work out. So I just advise that we as a board take our time, that if we don't feel that we have enough information or you need another round of interviews, to don't limit yourself to trying to have someone by the end of the school year. I would clearly believe we would get someone before the beginning of the next school year, but just to keep that in mind. And I also want to bring another point, because I understand what Andy is saying in terms of the additional 3 coming into the to the group, sorry. That anytime HR has a position that they have to fill, you have to remember there's always going to be a big pool of people. And you have to find a way to narrow that number down. And the scoring is something that has been used methodically through a lot of organizations and a lot of industries in terms of how the committee scored. I would think that you would have trusted that the folks that were on the committee were able to review the information and have a thorough discussion that allowed us to score them the way that they were scored. And I just want to go back to just my original plan that we put together was to do the top 10. Now, the committee had a lengthy conversation about 10 and 11, right? Because of the closeness of the scoring. And I think even that I still wanted to say, but we said, because one thing I want us to keep in mind is the integrity of the process that we say that we're putting in. So although I believe that the additional 3 are decent candidates because they were in the top, in the pool, they still did not measure up in terms of scoring to rise to that number of the top 11. So I just want the board just to keep that in mind.
So,
Okay, go ahead.
go ahead. Okay, so 2 things. One is, I think you're right about the scoring. I do think it's fair for us to get the names and maybe look, but I do think if we want to have people trust the choice was not made sort of by the old boy network. If somebody was blind ruled out and then you choose that person, it looks a little dubious to people. Also, something else, and I also think you are very much right that we need to go slow and do this right and not be locked into the end of the school year. I do think that the teacher's position on this board is important. I believe that. I know I don't vote, but I believe that it's important to have a teacher's voice here. When I took this position, I didn't really realize that it went into the summer. And on May 31st, I am leaving to Asia for 6 weeks. And so maybe we want to get the next person online if we do go over. I know there's somebody coming in, and it would be helpful to me and them if we could find that person out and I can and get them up to speed a little bit, and then someone is, just so we know some teacher is in this seat on a board meeting that maybe goes over.
So understand this, Ms. Dr. Johnson. It's not a trust issue. I trust you. Okay. Here's the thing. Haven't had significant experience in hiring. I get concerned when we're looking at a piece of, well, many pieces of paper, all right? I get the rubric, it's all important. For me, it's important for me to put my eyes on and hear what somebody says. We cannot miss this. So, and I'm not, I don't believe in for 1 minute that anybody on that committee would have any ill intentions of anything, because they don't have the names. I get it all. It's all on the up and up. My thing is, you got 14, we're at 11. If we at least allow them to present a video, hey, what have we lost? Nothing, in my mind. We've heard from all of them. They may be clowns. I have no idea. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't know. I don't understand what the harm is in doing that versus it just for lack of, or to be totally transparent. Why not let the 14, from the 14, we'll choose whatever you guys decide. I don't know. It doesn't matter. Just one vote. One of the things I worry about is we have the rubric, right? This is one of the things I was taught in hiring. It's called a halo effect. So if I focus on these, how many ever rubric, how many ever the experience, all these things that are in this scoring rubric, if I focus only on what's on there, what am I missing over here? I don't know the answer to that.
You're right. But the first part of this process was not to focus on the other. This is where the rest of it comes in. This is where the video would come in, the actual interview would come in, the names would come in, right? Because you're not, there has to be a part of the process where you are ruling out based on skills and qualifications. And I get what you're saying, they were qualified, I get that. It was a process we put in place. It's up to the board to allow the 13,
Right.
allow all of them in. I'm just only giving you my experience.
Okay. Yeah, thank you.
So my comment was, at the beginning of this process, you and LaQuanda went to great effort to make sure this was rolled out with complete transparency. Right. You gave us the process. You explained how it's going to work. We all know it's no secret that the board's been battling, mistrust and issues like that, rumors in the community. So my feeling is that if we're going to be held to the integrity that the community expects us to be held to, even a minor deviation in what was already rolled out to the public, to our staff, would be seen as not favorable, because a minor deviation could easily lead to a bigger deviation, and even a bigger deviation from what the original plan was going to be. I trust the committee that went through. I trust the process. At the end of the day, we also discussed, once we go through all this, if there wasn't a candidate that rose to the top, that we would revisit it. So those opportunities are always there. But, to hang on to the integrity that we really need to hang on to, especially with this process, I think we need to continue forward with what the original plan was.
All right, so I like what everybody said so far. Take your time going through the process. I think that's good. We can talk about the number of candidates. If we choose, we can pick 9. We don't have to pick 11, or we don't have to pick 14. That's up to us as a board. Now, first of all, I want to commend the committee on doing all this process. It was very helpful. Organized it a lot. I went through each individual applicant, the ones that were nominated as the top 11, the ones that didn't make the cut, and the ones that were not qualified, and perused every single one of them. I have a list of questions here, 2 pages actually, per applicant. Not everyone's a question, but my ranking of the applicants, I believe, and what Trustee Unsweta said, that, you know, we got to be very transparent in this process. But my charge as trustee, and after talking with the community and staff members, is that, you know, we might not necessarily need to get the most qualified applicant as we get the right fit for our community and for the charter system. Charter system is the number one reason why we're doing this, and we got to get it right, as Trustee Blair said. So, you know, I noticed that we did not have anything in the rubric that talked about local knowledge. I don't know, you know, I understand there have been some internal applicants, obviously with the redacted statements where we can't see the information. You know, I'm not sure if one of those made the cut or didn't make the cut, but, you know, I'd be very disappointed that if we have some internal candidate that didn't make the cut that we feel like should have, that we missed out on an opportunity, because a lot of people are talking to me about trying to find somebody internally that we could look at, that would know the system, that would know the staff and the community and fit in very well. So, you know, I didn't have really any questions except for one of the candidates that was not included was on less than 1 point below the top 11. So we keep saying, well, this one's just less than 1 point from this one. This one's just less from this one. So in Trustee Blair's comments, you know, what do we lose by having a few more? But also understand, you know, if they're going to present a video, it doesn't mean you have to pick them, but it gives you an opportunity to look at every single person. You're only talking about 3 more 5-minute videos, if that's the route we go, from that standpoint. I think that's all I had on that.
Question, Brian, just to clarify. So are you saying that if there's a local or internal candidate, and I don't know, that not qualified, we should still consider?
No, not at all.
Okay.
No, yeah. I'm hoping that if we have a qualified candidate that has made the cut, you know, that's going to be good for us. I talked about the assistant superintendent of curriculum many times, and I've been asked to kind of hold off on that until we get a new superintendent to get their thoughts on that. But our principals just have no upward mobility. You're a principal, you're a principal for 20 years in the system. And, you know, do you meet the qualifications to become a superintendent? Or do you go elsewhere to be assistant superintendent in a different school? And we lose a different public school system, and you lose a good staff member because they had no upward mobility. So that's why partly I thought that was a very good position to have, to give a stepping stone so that later on down the road, you know, they may have an opportunity to step into these positions that, you know, we may find somebody that's been a superintendent for several years and, you know, look hard at those people and not look hard at our own staff because they didn't get an opportunity to be in a supervisory position other than a principal.
Okay. And I think Raphael said it better than I could have ever. We had a committee, we had a process. I think it would not be good if we kind of deviate from what we set out to do. So, I mean, what's the point of having a committee if you're going to start doing your own thing? And I get it as far as, you know, bringing other candidates in the pool that are close. And I think our committee did that. And I just really think it's very important that we do what we said we were going to do.
I think if we ruled out an internal candidate in a blind review, and then we saved that person and gave that person the job, that person would be going in hamstrung. There would be very little trust among teachers that it wasn't an inside job. I mean, we said something and we walked it back And I don't know how you're going to expect loyalty from teachers if we fought this whole big fight to be transparent and somebody is ruled out and then brought back in. An internal person saved and given the job is you better give them a crutch when they come in, because that's you're hamstringing them right from the beginning.
Any other conversation before we turn it back over to Al Ricky?
Just FYI, I was saying of the qualified people. That's, yeah.
I'm just saying.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm with you.
No, I think we're all talking about other qualified people.
Not the people that did make it.
Well, no, there were 11 that were brought forward by the committee. We had a process. It's even, I mean, the committee is even saying, okay, you can disagree. From the teacher's point of view, there was a process to get it down to 10. They debated to have it 11. Now you're expanding it further out with particular note of helping someone on the inside. And you're worried about transparency. I'm just saying that's not gonna, it's not gonna be a good look. Okay, look, I don't necessarily believe that this board acts in bad faith, but I get this from teachers all the time. From the people that constantly come to me with bad faith allegations, there's somebody you already want. You're worried they're not there. And so you're expanding it to get the person in. I mean, it's not rocket science. We said we were going to do X. Now we're saying we're going to do X plus 3. I have no problem with looking at the person, but if we look at the person and hire that person and it's an internal person, there better be an extraordinary justification to why the person was ruled out and then picked later. Because no matter what we say, teachers are going to remember. I mean, frankly, if we bring in 14 and we don't delineate that these are the 3 that were lower, then there's always going to be questions. The problem is transparency. I mean, the problem is transparency. We said one thing and we're doing something different.
I agree, and I'll just reiterate again, because I'm sure people are saying, well, she said 10, now it's 11. I have a couple of, we debated a while, if you attended that last meeting, that everyone had an opportunity to come listen in to the meeting that we had, where we discussed every single candidate. Yes, there were no names, and it was for a purpose. It was for a reason. You would have heard every question that came up. You would have heard every conversation that was had. We debated about that 11th person. So even if the board says, hey, Lynn, you said 10, I'm still okay with that, because at least we're still sticking to the process. We're still sticking to what we said we were going to do. It does not look good for us to go away from what we said we were going to do. Hence the reason why we went through all what we went through. It took time for this committee to go through these applicants. It took us 2+ hours to have conversations about these applicants. It was not taken lightly. And I commend each and every one of them that sat in that room with us and had those conversations. And to me, it would be a slap in the face to them as being a part of this system, this charter system, if we did not stick with what we said we were going to do as a board.
Well,
I'm good with that.
I am as well. I'm just going to say this as well. I was on the board when we did this the last time, and it wasn't fun. So far, this process is a lot more smoother. I'm a lot less involved, thank God, because there was it was haywire. It was haywire. There were apparently all kind of phone calls being made about the committee this and this and that, and I haven't gotten any of that now, and I appreciate it. I got other things to do, I'm just gonna tell you, I do. And I appreciate the way the process has gone. I appreciate the anonymity. I appreciate everything about the process. I appreciate the committee. I appreciate the integrity from the committee, and I hope it stays that way. That's why I said, whatever that process we said in the beginning, we should stick with it.
What she said, I agree with. Now, the only thing I was saying, this is the only reason I brought it up, was I don't want to miss out on a potential. But if everybody disagrees with that, I'm perfectly fine with that. So I'm not dissenting, just having discussion.
Any further discussion? All right, when we go to the regular meeting, we're going to be voting on that very topic. All right, Ricky?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for the conversation. I'm going to move on to item number 8, which is the financials. We actually presented the, last time we presented January financials. So we have February and March here available. Typically, when I have 2 months, I don't get into a lot of detail of the earlier months. So February, I won't get into a lot of detail. I'll just highlight using the narrative some areas that if there's some concern, and I'll start with the statement of operations, where our excess revenues through the month of February is $5.5 million. If there's no question on how much revenue we've collected or our expenditures, no unusual transactions during the month of February. The supplemental programs all presented excess revenue. Our food service program continues to move forward with excess revenue of $96,000, and our spending on our federal projects is right at 53% of what we actually budgeted. Through the month of February, transportation costs is in line, and then you have the capital projects for the Bach North and Bach South project, Bach North and Bach South campus. Moving on to March, which is exactly the month that we want to present, we have asset decreased by $3.9 million on the balance sheet, and then we have our liabilities decreased by $245,000. Statement of operations, where we have an uptick in our excess revenue to $6,035,474. Our supplemental programs, that's our pre-K and after school, all of the schools had excess revenue except for Hillcrest this particular month, but we expect it to be in line by the end of the year. Just a normal operating issue there. We have food service, continues to have positive impacts with $101,986 of excess revenue. And then we continue to spend our federal funds at an appropriate clip at 58% of what we budgeted. Transportation services is actually tracking at 72% or $1.8 million. So we expect to see a little bit less cost in transportation as we finish the year. And then we have our capital projects fund. I'm going to pause for a moment. I know my finance board member may have some questions for me.
Yeah, I just had one. On the total asset decrease of $3.995 million, what was that consisting of?
That consists of us evaluating all of the old assets on the system that's continuing on the system since 2004. We evaluated that as we're going into with a new auditor. We've been actually doing this over a period of time. We got with our previous auditor, the one that actually concluded the report, and we come to an agreement that there were certain assets that we actually just needed to remove. And the proposed adjustment actually is the auditor's adjustment to actually get those. Some of those items are just not available or don't have that useful life of that 3.9. So we have a list of those available, and it's throughout our system. It's really just cleaning that old stuff out of there.
All right, thank you, Eric.
Yes, sir. Okay. Moving on to other personnel items. Make sure I have this available here. It don't look like we have anything available. So, that's all I have on the financials. There's no more questions on the financials? Board members? Okay. And personnel report, there's no personnel report. Okay, superintendent update, item number 9. A couple things that I want to note. We've concluded all of our meetings that we actually scheduled around the schools for attendance. I think every board member had an opportunity to meet with your school representative, and some folks had a couple opportunities to meet. Hopefully, when we get to the board retreat, there'll be a good opportunity for us to talk about some of those ideas that you kind of discovered, some of the challenges and opportunities that the schools have available, maybe possibly putting some policy in place that might steer our attendance to be a little bit higher than what it is. I believe that we're somewhere around 90%. We're not. Okay, I got folks in the crowd saying no, but we want it. The goal is actually to get us to closer to 95% attendance throughout the year. And I think the principals and the schools have had some great ideas. I know at the last meeting, it was shared with us that since we've had this conversation, we've had greater participation with attendance. So just by having the meetings and discussing it, we've had some efforts that's put out by not only the schools, but actually the students actually are coming along. We are in the phase of preparing our budget for the 25-26 year, and want to kind of highlight to the board that in preparing for this budget, it's a tough year. One, we're coming off of this will be the first year that we'll have any CARES funding, any additional funding. Over the last 4 years plus, we had roughly $21 million that we had available within the system. This will be the first year that we won't have any of that funding available, and we're having to make some adjustments in order to get back to normal. Dealing with that funding cliff is definitely something that we've anticipated it, but you never can anticipate, coming off of that the way that you want to. So in preparing the 25-26 budget, I'll be proposing that we use some of the reserves to kind of get us over that cliff. Last year we used $700,000 for our custodial, or we actually got approval for a budget for $700,000. We haven't gotten to a point to where we know whether we need it or not, but we proposed that and we actually put that in the budget. And then we also had some additional funding for Janie Howard Wilson last year as well as what we proposed within the budget. And I want to say Babson Park, we actually also put some funding in there as well for that school as it lost a little student revenue. And that's, in the current year. So what we're proposing this year is $1 million for custodial, $250,000 for Janie Howard Wilson for contractual services for school psychologists and some other things in order to get that school in line. I think many of you have visited the Janie Howard Wilson campus and had expressed some concerns about additional support. And then $120,000 to support our social workers. The social workers, roughly $500,000, but through other funding sources, we were able to kind of get most of them funded, with the exception of $120,000. The social workers, I like to highlight that because of the funding sources we use, we'll probably be changing some of their responsibilities around to meet those obligations for those other sources, but I'll be speaking with the schools on that. So that total is $1,370,000 that I'll be proposing. It's not to say that we'll actually use all of that funding, but definitely it's something that I want to propose within the system. Now, since I'm talking about reserves a little bit, our financial condition ratio, we're required to have based on, I think our policy is 5% of whatever the general fund, expected general fund revenues is, which is about $2.2 million. We have, let me make sure I say this correctly. We're sitting roughly at $11.2 million and projected for the 24-25 year. Once it's complete with the revenues, it'd be 13.5. I'm sorry, the 24-25 is 13.5 million. So we have plenty of reserves in order to cover what we say in terms of the threshold that the system would like to have, and it's even lower threshold for what's required by the state. We're running right at 32% of our financial condition ratio. Prior to COVID, we were right at 21%. So we're okay in terms of being able to use funding for one additional year, and hopefully by next year we'll have a different outcome. Any questions or comments on what I've kind of discussed so far? Okay. We're preparing our needs assessments for our federal projects at this moment. So not only are the schools preparing their budgets, but we're also doing centralized budget for the federal funds that are non-school related, and it's the discretionary funds for the superintendent. Some of those funds will be budgeted and assigned. I'm trying to leave a great deal of them with flexibility for the new superintendent, but some of those funds, as I mentioned, our Title IV and some other ones, we've kind of tied up with some projects moving forward that I know that the schools want to continue on. IDEA with Ms. Barrow and I've been talking about a lot the last couple of weeks in terms of that superintendent discretion, in terms of what is the best way to actually utilize that $1 million that we receive for those students, those ESC students. So there's a lot of discussion in terms of our 25-26 budget on the federal projects, in terms of what we plan to do. Federal projects we expect to be flat. That means what we received this current year, the 2024-25 is what we expect in the 25-26. I want to go back to the the state and local funds, which is our majority of our funding. We've done a preliminary analysis using the conference report, and we've determined that we have a 1% 1% operating increase, so it's roughly flat. And that totals about $340,000 system-wide from the previous year. So we almost have a flat revenue from the previous year. We have $640,000 for teacher salary increases that'll be available, and that $640,000 must be spent on teacher salary increases. So right now the schools have challenges in front of them in terms of how do they actually go into the 25-26 year with same revenue as they had with rising costs. And we know that costs are rising. So we're doing everything we can to make sure that we maximize all of the other resources that we have so the schools can operate at the same level that they have in the past. Okay. If there's no questions on that update, I'm going to move on. The February 24th work session meetings, minutes here will be requested for approval during the work session, and that's all I have for that. Next meeting, May 19th. Danny, you don't have a special meeting that you may want to call prior to that, do you? Okay, I just want to make sure. All right, the next meeting is actually 4:00 on May 19th, 2025 here in the auditorium. That's the work session, and the meeting is actually at 5:30. If there's any changes to the meeting, Marie would actually put a notice out, and try to get one out at least 1 week in advance. Trustees report.
Thanks, Ricky. The only thing I want to say is I'm excited and proud of our educators, how they've worked so hard this year. I'm super proud of those who have been named as the Support Person of the Year and Teacher of the Year. And also want to thank our attorney, Sean Arnold, and his team for their expertise and support. They have been phenomenal. That's all I have. Trustees?
I actually have a couple things. For one thing, let me own up to the fact that I did get the email. Dr. Johnson proved it to me, so I did get it. So it is my fault. I don't want to besmirch Marie over there. My fault, not yours. Thank you. But I have a couple other things. One thing is I saw that Polk County Schools is given a raise next year. I know we just got a raise, but it's a 4 to 7% raise. That's to our veteran teachers, that's like a $4,000 difference. I know we don't really say same or better anymore, but we should be thinking about trying to keep pace. They just got a raise. Another one is going back, thinking about the budget, just talking about this. I don't know if you guys are aware, I hope you are, but there's a bill going through the House right now in Tallahassee, House Bill 5101, that cuts funding for AP, IB, Cambridge, all career academies, and dual enrollment programs by 50%. That's a massive cut to the top end of high schools in this state. I wrote my representatives, but I think we as a board should say something. Also, as a side note, our state government also is in favor of dismantling the Federal Department of Education, which is a separate conversation and maybe or maybe should not happen. But they're in favor of dismantling it without clearly saying that the funding coming from that is going to be put in place. That would be a massive cut to our funding at the bottom. I mean, we're facing potential massive cuts from two directions, and I think we as a board should say, we are not wasting this money. We need this money, and it benefits the children in this community. I don't think we should just be silent on that. Then the last thing I would say is a couple weeks ago, we had a pretty serious lockdown here. I think you're all aware of that. The student ended up being arrested for a fairly violent crime. I was locked in a room with some students at this high school as the whole thing was going down. And of course, some of my students are getting information on their phones, right? Before it was even over, some of the students in my room knew who the student was. And I got into a conversation with a girl in my room about this young man. She knew exactly who he was. She knew that he had a long history of problems, that he had been expelled from McLaughlin, had been at Don Woods, had serious problems at McLaughlin. And as she was telling me this, one of the things she was saying to me is her little cousin comes home from school and reads every day and keeps applying to get in to Lake Wells High School and can't get in. And she's at McLaughlin and we took this guy. I do think we need to take I don't think this should not be a school where we are taking only the top students. However, this town has grown bigger than this system can now handle. And I think it is reasonable for us to have in our lottery system an attendance requirement. Me digging into this, finding out where kids are winning the lottery and they're missing half the days at the school they're coming from. And then they're not showing up here. And I do not advocate saying that you have to be an angel to win the lottery spot. But man, if you get kicked, I mean, there's got to be some. I mean, we just had a serious lockdown over a kid that we accepted in, and now it's our school that's in the newspapers for having a student that does that kind of things. He hadn't been here for a very long amount of time. We need to be open to everybody, but at the same time, if we can't serve everybody, and we can't, we know we can't serve everybody now. The town has grown bigger. I think it is reasonable for us to have some sort of requirement that if you're going to come here, you're going to come and you're going to not get arrested for violent crimes, which maybe that, I don't know what the policy is, but the idea that this conversation with this little girl this girl in my class that day when we were on lockdown, it was breaking my heart. Her telling me how much her cousin is suffering in a school, and that we took this kid that lives 3 houses down from her. That's always a problem. That stuck with me, and I just wanted to say that we should think about that as well. That's all I got.
I'd like to comment on that if I could. I was in the attendance meeting last week. It was a great meeting where we had representatives from every school. And one of the things that we talked about was just that, which kind of goes into the other big thing on my radar right now, which is school safety. It's all kind of related. But we've got to do something about our school safety. We've got to, obviously it's not going to be today, but that needs to be a priority for this board. The second part of that is when we look at enrollment and those sorts of things, as we move towards being the charter system of excellence that we want to be academically, one of the things that a great indicator of that is attendance. And so in order for us to kind of move the needle, there's going to be pain points in the beginning, but one of the things we talked about, which again, probably some information and input from our council, is that we'd like to see the teachers, the social workers, and everybody, the principals that were in that, would like to see that attendance and discipline, maybe, if that's something we can do, be a consideration when looking at enrollment into either Bach and the high school. So as an elementary student, hey, it's important that I come to school because it affects me on up the line. And so that's the kind of consensus I got from the staff was, boy, that would be neat. And then discipline issues, again, we want every student to have a place, and maybe sometimes it's our place to find them a place, if that makes sense. So I don't know what that looks like, but that was what I got out of the meeting. So I think you're right on track there. Thank you.
I would just like to just personally thank again the selection committee that was involved in what we did in terms of the superintendent search. And so kudos to all of them that sat on that committee. To kind of actually go in line with what Andy is saying, I actually had an opportunity to sit at one of those attendance meetings too. But I agree with everything that has been said about school safety and everything. But what I took away from the meeting, and this is something that I don't know we need to do in the future in terms of people who serve on this board, there's no onboarding process to be a board member. And onboarding is so important because you should be able to learn about the system. And what I learned not even a few weeks ago was the charter piece of this system and the different charters that every school has in this system. And because of that, there's a lot of differences that keeps us from being consistent as a system. And so I know I'm like Andy, we can't settle this today, but I think there needs to be a larger discussion about the charters within the schools and how we can, and maybe this is for the new superintendent that comes in, but there has to be a discussion about consistency to bring the individual schools that actually work as their own individual businesses, which is great, but when it comes to consistency, it's not so great, which ties into the attendance piece, which ties into what student gets into what school. So I would love for us to put on the agenda in the future to have a bigger conversation about, for us to be really educated on the differences between these charters and what would it look like to actually become one charter. One system, yes. Of course we can't do it today, I get that.
Well, I don't have much, because right here I had continuity within the schools and certain policies, so there you hit it. You hit the safety with the schools. We just got to get some policies, get some discussions going. And, you know, with the school safety and the attendance thing, I think that, yeah, we need to have that discussion as a board, but I think we need to get other organizations involved, whether it's DCF or whoever, because there are other components to kids missing school, right?
Well, yeah, that's a great point. And we talked about that because we had people a lot more experience in that room than me, social workers and people have the truancy and all, you know, Polk County has a truancy officer, we don't, those sorts of things. A lot of the principals have worked in other systems and they have it, you know, they point people to this facility. And so, yeah, it'd be great for us maybe at our retreat to have those people come and kind of educate us all at the same time. It was eye-opening.
So first, I just want to thank our staff, teachers, principals for heading towards the finish line this year. I know you guys have a lot of stuff you still want to accomplish, but thank you for the hard work and the effort that each school's putting in towards that. We certainly have challenges. We've discussed a bunch of them already, but I want to shine some light on some positive stuff, and I want to feature Janie Howard Wilson, just kind of get some shout outs over there. Miss Griffiths, Miss Barrow, Miss Alexander, and also Miss Poirier. Did I say that right? Poirier, okay, Miss Poirier. They've been really trying to work through thinking outside the box on how to take care of some issues that are not just Janie Howard issues. They are Lake Wells Charter School issues. And the approach they're taking is something that I think every school should have a conversation about. I love that they've put in place a mentor program, and if I could just kind of advertise right now that they could use more. You know, they're in partnership with Daryl Starling, who's done this mentorship programs in the past, and they're doing great stuff over there. So just put the call out there. If anyone knows people that are interested in being a mentor in a child's life, that sometimes can make all the difference in the world. So great things happening there with those programs. So thanks for that effort.
I also want to shout out Janie Howard, just the work you guys have put in with the IB portfolio and everything. I know the time that you guys have put in. For our retreat over summer, I do think we need to look at the budget. I toured the ESE wing at Janie Howard, and they've got some challenges there. They're contracting out for behavior techs that are only able to focus on 2 kids. And so that's a ton of resources to put in when we're only benefiting a couple students, and trying to find that balance, because I'm an ESE person. So I love that she's got that program there, but I just want to make sure we're giving her the support she needs for that to be successful and to meet the needs of all of her students. I've got to give a special shout out to my Polk Avenue school. They had the incident where a student was hit by a car. One of my Warner students is an intern there who takes everything to heart. So when I checked on her, she went in, she got teary-eyed talking about how inspiring it was, just how she watched all the teachers there pull together and support each other and support their students. So I know what a tough day that was for you guys, but just kudos to you for how that was handled. Going back to what Mr. Blair said with school safety, just given the shooting that just happened at Florida State, I do feel like that's something maybe at our summer retreat that we do spend quite a bit of time looking at, because it's an issue all over.
Okay, I don't have a whole lot of, you know, I'm obviously more on the financial side of things, and so I want to commend all the principals in reviewing the financials of staying on budget in a tough budget year. And it sounds like we're going to even have a tougher budget year. As we talked about reserves and everything, I would ask that if each one of y'all would like to send me personally a list of what y'all would like to have in the budget, because as we talked about reserves, and I've mentioned that before, I'd be happy to have that conversation on y'all's behalf with Mr. Smith. I also want to commend the search committee that was formed. That's a lot of material to go through and process, and I appreciate all the work that they put into it to get us the applicants and categorize them for us and everything like that. So I'm looking forward to moving forward with that. And I'm looking forward to celebrating the Teacher of the Year and the Teacher Support Staff of the Year. Thank you.
Okay. School principals, you guys have presented your updates, okay? Any other business for good of the cause? Meeting's adjourned.
Okay, folks, we're going to take a 10-minute break to give them time to set up for the next meeting. So the regular meeting will start at 5:14. Can I have your attention, please, folks? We're going to go ahead and call the regular board meeting to order. Pastor Andy Blair, will you lead us in invocation, please?
Let's pray. Father, we
Okay, folks, we're going to move into the next section, which is going to be recognizing our support personnel of the year and our teacher of the year.
Thank you guys so much for coming out and celebrating with us today. Our first support person of the year for Dale R. Fair Babson Park Elementary, Miss Elisa Hayes. Come on out. Miss Elisa Hayes. Our next support person is coming to us from Hillcrest Elementary, Miss Carla Johnson. Come on down, Carla. Our next superstar is Mr. Don Hayward, Support Staff Person of the Year, Janie Howard Wilson Elementary. Come on down. Our next superstar comes from Polk Avenue Elementary, Miss Jennifer Gilbert. What am I do with her? Our next superstar comes to us from Edward W. Bach Academy North, Miss Charlene Ceballos. Our next superstar comes to us from Edward W. Bach Academy South, Miss Mary Miller. And our last support person of the year is a diehard Highlander. That was a joke, y'all. Comes to us from Lake Wells High School. It's Miss Ariane Seidel. Coach A. Our first wonderful teacher of the year comes to us from Dale R. Fair Babson Park Elementary, Miss Callie Moore. Our next superstar teacher of the year comes to us from Janie Howard Wilson Elementary, Miss Amanda Bender. Oh, I'm sorry. Oops. No, it's fine. Yeah. Our next superstar, sorry about that, comes to us from Hillcrest Elementary, Miss LaKendra McMahon. I had that right check. Check gotta be right. Then lose the box, congrats. Well, we think Amanda's pretty special too. Our next teacher of the year comes to us from Janie Howard Wilson Elementary, Miss Amanda Bender. Go ahead. Our next superstar comes to us from Polk Avenue Elementary, Miss Vivian Santander. Come on up, Vivian. Our next superstar comes to us from Edward W. Bach Academy North, Miss Tanya Rozier. Congratulations. Our next superstar comes to us, Teacher of the Year from Edward W. Bach Academy South, Miss Lynn Gramlich. Last but definitely not least, comes to us, Teacher of the Year from Lake Wales High School, Miss Megan de la Cerda. Don't know. That's where we're going to have the drum roll. You go ahead. Our Lake Wales Charter Schools Support Staff of the Year comes to us from Lake Wales High School, Miss Ariane Seidel. Oh, we can get that to her later. And the moment you've all been waiting for. Lake Wales Charter Schools Teacher of the Year, Miss Lynn Gramlich. guys go ahead and get on your feet. Round of applause for all of our Teachers of the Year. Thank you guys so much for joining us. We've got light refreshments, and we're going to take a break online, but we have light refreshments for our nominees, for our
That's right. They were president started.
Trustee Blair, we're going to start the meeting back up.
Good for you.
I want to thank everyone for taking the break with us, recognizing the very important Teacher of the Year, Support Personnel of the Year, and congratulate to the finalists who are the Teacher of the Year and the Support Person of the Year. Again, as I said earlier, all of the educators that work hard, and we really appreciate those. And we recognize those who were voted on by their peers as the top in their field. The next item on the agenda is the scheduled persons to address the board. Before we do that, I've got a quick announcement. At the last board meeting in February, we had an employee request to speak about the bylaws agenda, item which ended up being a 3-minute personal attack on another employee. This is not the forum for that type of behavior, and it will not be tolerated. We have defined rules in our public comment policy that prohibit personal attacks, and in the future they will be handled swiftly. We all live and work in this wonderful small town because we love it for its intimate personal charm. Many of us have grown up here, moved here long ago, and have family and friends here. For a person to request to speak, make personal, hurtful, and defaming comments about someone in a public meeting is not acceptable. No one should ever be verbally attacked in public, whether you like them or not. That type of behavior is not a civilized approach to being a good, respectful neighbor. Let's all remember that everyone should be treated in a dignified manner. Secondly, the comments that were made at the last meeting reminded me that old allegations and investigations against Ms. Barrow were never publicly clarified, and that needs to be done. Over 5 years ago, Ms. Barrow filed a grievance against former Superintendent Jackson. Shortly after that, a thorough investigation was initiated by Dr. Jackson and conducted by our past HR director. HR interviewed personnel, and that report came back as unfounded and dismissed. To continue the investigation, our previous attorney hired the Polk County Sheriff's Office division that investigates Polk County Public Schools to complete a thorough campus investigation. After many hours of staff interviews, the Polk County Sheriff's Office reported that the investigation allegations were unfounded and therefore dismissed. Instead of there being a full investigation of the former superintendent, Ms. Barrow was investigated twice. This should have been announced many years ago, but it wasn't, and I apologize for that. Marie, anybody scheduled to speak?
No, sir.
Thank you, ma'am. As presented at the work session, the bylaw ratification, I'll seek a motion for approval.
So moved.
I have a motion by Dr. Hutto. Second by Andy. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries. The Lake Wells Charter School Nominating Committee policy is presented during the work session. If there are no questions, I'll entertain a motion for approval.
So moved.
Motion by Brian,
Second.
second by Lori. Any comments or questions? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries. Approval of the Superintendent Search Committee applicants. We were presented various information. There was good discussion, and I leave it up to the board for your decision on how we move forward.
Is this discussion, Tom?
This is a motion or discussion, whichever you please.
I make a motion.
Go ahead.
Sorry, I make a motion to continue with the plan as laid out to the board in previous meetings and to accept the 11.
I second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. Time for discussion.
Well, here's what I would say. if we're gonna move forward with the thing that was laid out, then it's 10. It's not 11. So I would say it's either 10 or 14. If we're gonna follow that logic, and I'm good with that.
Because the board did say at the last meeting, 10 applicants, so.
I'm okay with that.
Then I'll amend my motion to say move forward with the 10.
Okay, I have an amended motion for 10.
And I second.
You second that? Any further discussion on the amended motion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries.
Dean, before we go further off this topic, are we going to discuss the next step? You made some suggestions, how we're going to handle the next step.
Yeah, good point.
Can I make a recommendation? Well, based on your recommendation earlier, to provide the applicants with of course, allow them to introduce themselves, but also provide them a maybe one or two questions of something that the board would like for them to answer. That's important, right? So if the board is saying something in terms of, if the board wants them to know something about us locally, right? You can create a question to pose to them, to make whoever that person is, to do the research to find out and be able to logically answer a question. So the next step would actually be, what exactly do we want them to answer? Okay, so I don't know if you want LaQuanda and I to come up with the answers, the questions, and then submit it to the board via email or whatever. I don't know how you want to go that piece. It's really no right or wrong on that.
Great idea.
Okay.
Any input from the board?
Yeah, obviously we want them to kind of talk about their background and experience.
Yeah.
And then two of the questions maybe are, why Lake West Charter Schools?
Yes, of course.
And then what are your plans for Lake West Charter Schools? If given the opportunity, what do you plan to do? Very broad.
That's a very broad
I
topic.
think that's very broad.
Yeah, I would limit what Andy said to what do you plan to do to help us reach a high-performing school status?
Oh, I like that.
So I like the idea of having some questions. I would like to have our interim superintendent, who's been deeply involved with the system for a long period of time, served 2 times as interim superintendent, to have a question that he thinks is very pertinent to this position. I think that would be a good person to have one question from.
And we're talking about 5-minute videos, right?
Yeah,
So we just want to also make sure that we're not inundating them with a lot of questions on this, round. So I would say definitely intro, experience, why Lake Wells Charter, definitely, okay, and then,
So can you get those questions together for us, Dr. Johnson? That'd be
Yeah,
great. And
definitely.
that way, it may jog our memory to, have a little suggestion or not.
Yes.
But you have the experience in that background, so we'll look for you to lead us in that.
Yeah, I'd like to leave this meeting with those questions so that we can then have the special meeting on whatever date Danny said.
No, I would say that I could have you the questions by tomorrow.
Okay, I'm good with that.
Let some thought come.
I mean, okay.
What I'm going to submit to you will be what will be specifically given to the applicant. So there's no going back, making sure you got the right verbs and adjectives and all that kind of stuff, and they have to be formulated in a way that a person understands your question.
And rather than 5 minutes, you want to say 5 to 10 minutes to
We
give them
can.
10 minutes to
Not
do
to
that?
exceed, how about not to exceed 12? 15, I don't care.
10, 5 to 10 minutes. I think.
2 hours.
Yeah, let's do a 2-hour video. I think 10 minutes, I think they can say everything that we need to hear in
Yes,
10 minutes.
I'm okay with that.
So 10-minute max. Any other input from the board?
Okay, and obviously after that, what is our next procedure? Because you mentioned calling, I know talked about calling a special meeting. I'm out of town the first week of May as well. So,
We can be flexible on that. I mean,
okay. But,
I was just throwing times out.
okay, so our next step is to review the videos and obviously have a meeting, and that meeting will be to pare down the number to some number. Okay. And that's kind of similar to the process that we.
Already done.
Yes.
And I'll make sure that's included in the email too.
Okay, so if you will, entertain me with a motion to cover what we just talked about. So the next step motion will be for us to notify them that they'll produce a video with questions, maximum 10 minutes,
Yep.
with questions provided by committee chair. And there'll be a timeline set for that to be returned in order for us to review.
So they'll get, a week.
And then based on that review period, I will have Marie poll the board to see when we can schedule the meeting to go over that. So the motion at this point would be for applicants to be notified that they need to produce a video with questions provided by the committee chair within 1 week.
1 week, I'm okay with within 1 week, and then we have at least a week, a minimum of a week to review.
Okay.
And then a special meeting to discuss. Is that what we're saying, to dwindle it down? Now, there has to be, now I'm throwing in another monkey wrench here. Okay, everybody reviews it. What are we determining how we're going to narrow them down to 5?
It'll be in a meeting.
Of what, just open discussions?
Has to
And
be.
like, hey, I like this person, I don't like that person.
Has to be by sunshine.
It's, okay. No, I get that. I'm just saying, do we need a parameter, not another rubric, but like parameters, because
I think now we're down to personal.
well, that's why I asked, because now when you're down to personal preference, it's gonna cause for a lengthy discussion.
Maybe. Might be unanimous.
It might be, you're right.
I mean, would it be possible, Dr. Johnson, for you to make some sort of rubric, just so as we watch the videos, we have a framework of what to be thinking about and talking about? I mean, I know when we get here, it's personal opinion and gut feeling, but I have less experience about what I should be looking for.
So here's the only reason why I even mention it, because a lot of us, some of us may have been a part of hiring processes. There are things that we can get ourselves in trouble with by saying, and this is going to be an open meeting, and you could get into legal entanglements based off a question that somebody may ask that is against the law.
That might be good.
So,
So it sounds like we need to get counsel.
Yeah, well,
Oh, yeah,
council
yeah.
will be here for that meeting.
yeah. But it's not gonna stop you from, he's only gonna be able to say it once you've said it already.
Gotcha.
And once you've said it, then then somebody could immediately say, well, now that person is biased, or that person they're thinking a certain way. That's why this is a little sticky when we're having these types of conversations.
But all we're talking about at that special meeting is who we want to move to the top 5.
Yes, but then if you say, I want to move 1, 2, 3 to the top 5, or names, or however we say it, right? And then I come behind you and say, well, no, this, and this is why, right? And then somebody may come in and say something that's, it could be a biased statement, it could be an illegal statement, it could be anything that could happen just in mere conversations. And I'm only bringing that up not to prolong the process, just we need to be aware of what could potentially happen in an open conversation.
Well, before we get to that meeting, I'll talk with council and we'll figure out a solution to
Okay.
that.
I agree.
Yeah, I mean, if they could prepare a little short statement about some legal guidelines.
Yeah,
And I could too.
yep.
Yeah.
I could put some, refrain from thinking,
Right.
right? These
Protected
things.
classes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, so we'll address that. We'll have that prepared before we have the special meeting to narrow the number down to 5. So between council and chair, we'll figure that out. So,
One last thing, so we may not have a schedule, we may have enough scheduling conflicts that we can vote at the next meeting if we have to and not have a special meeting. Because I know we already
Could.
have some scheduling conflicts. Again, we're not trying to rush
Good.
it,
Yeah, yeah,
you know, and
yeah.
everything like
Listen,
that.
and we
So,
won't rush it. We'll
well,
just-
if we can schedule it, we will. If not, it'll be at the next board meeting.
Absolutely.
Are you looking for a motion still?
I have,
I
yes,
motion.
okay. That's a lot of motion.
That's a lot of motions, right? I motion to accept the next steps of notifying candidates to provide a video of 10 minutes, up to 10 minutes max. I, along with LaQuanda, will come up with the questions. We will submit them to the board for review and additional suggestions. And then we will formulate those questions to the applicant. We will give them a week to respond. And depending on the time frame, a minimum, at least a week for us to review. And then come back to the whatever meeting that we hold to narrow
Whether
them
it's a
down
regular
to the
meeting or
top
special
five.
meeting.
I motion all of that.
All right.
I'll second all
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
The only thing, and I think this will happen, I may not need to amend the motion, but that one of those questions be why Lake Wells Charter. I think that was unanimous.
And I wrote that on my sheet of paper right here, Mr.
You just didn't put it in your motion, so. Anyway, so could we amend the motion just to put that, why Lake Wales, be one of the questions, and then you ask whatever you want to ask after that?
Yes.
Okay,
Okay, so
Then I third
you're
that
amending
motion.
your motion.
I amend the motion
Okay, to
to
include,
make sure that we include Wild Lake Wells Charter School.
all right, we have an amended motion. You second
Yes.
the
that will
amended,
be submitted.
yes.
you second your amended motion?
I'll second it.
I second.
I'll
All
second
right,
it
any
too.
further discussion or questions? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries. The approval of the Lake Wales Charter School calendar for 24-25 is presented during the work session. I'll seek a motion for approval.
So moved.
I have a motion by Raphael.
Second.
I got double motion by Tanya and Lori. Any further comments or questions? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, motion carries. Approval of the Bach North principal status. Is that an item that you need approval on? Because it's usually not a confirmation needed. Okay, no. It's a notification, not a motion. Okay. Okay. Approval of the Board of Trustees work session minutes from February 24. I'll seek a motion for approval. I have a motion by Tanya. Second by Dr. Johnson. Any comments or questions? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, motion carries. Approval of the Board of Trustees meeting minutes as presented. Seek a motion for approval. I have a motion by Tanya, second by Lori. Any comments or questions? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, motion carries. Ricky, anything you want to add to the financial report?
No, sir.
Okay.
Requesting as presented.
Seek a motion for approval of financial reports as presented. That is February and March. You want those independent or together?
Now they can go together.
Okay. I have a motion by Brian. Second by Tanya. Any comments or questions? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? Motion carries. Approval of the personnel changes for February and March. Seek a motion for approval. I have a motion by Tanya, second by Brian. Any comments or questions?
We did not.
No, there weren't any.
No. Okay. We're approving no personnel change. Moving on.
I'll approve that.
Okay.
Too late.
Superintendent's report.
I don't have any additional comments. If you want to just announce the next meeting, sir.
Okay. Next meeting is Monday, May the 19th at 5:30 at the Lake Wales High School with the work session at 4 o'clock.
Hey, Chairman, I had a couple of questions for the superintendent. We were running out of time on
Okay.
the first meeting.
You want to do it now or doing your report?
I can do it either way.
Okay. Go ahead, floor is yours.
Okay. Two things. I had asked at the last workshop, which was obviously 60 days ago, that we get an update on some parent letters in general. I know we've kind of gotten one update, but could you get us an update on the other two that were?
On the parent letters.
Parent letters are sent to the board. In general, because I know it can't necessarily always be in specifics. So I don't need that today, but if you could get that to us out to the board, we didn't receive that. And then secondly, and I hate that all the principals are gone, but I wanted to know how the contract cleaning services were going. Has that been better, worse? And from the principal's perspective, better or worse?
We're actually in. It's better? Okay. We're actually in the process of negotiating it, and they'll have an opportunity actually to get together and rate the current folks as well as think about folks moving forward. But for the folks that's here, you're welcome to kind of speak on that.
I think it's been complicated.
I know one thing that's been discussed potentially is looking at that summer waxing. And she is correct, the waxing has not gotten done. I will say at Polk Avenue, they were some offering to come and do some waxing, but the teachers weren't in a place in their classrooms where they were set to have their floors waxed. So they, you know,
Trustee reports. Anything else you want to bring up, talk about? Nope. Dr. Johnson? Good. Andy?
Just real quick, I don't know if anybody's done a tour of the new 1919 Bach North building. We should be, I don't know if Ms. Speed has got the latest update, but we should be in by the end of the school year, correct? Yep. So, looks good. It's going to happen. Finally. So
The date's moved a few times.
it's moved a couple of times, just from year to year.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's great. It's good.
Tanya, anything else you want to bring up? You good? Raphael?
No, sir.
Good? All right. Good. Ryan? Any other business for the good of the cause? Hearing none, meeting adjourned. Thank you all.